say anything too embarrassing because we're now being recorded, but let me just repeat Susan's idea that when the opening statement is posted, not as a discussion message, but is posted through the opening statement tool, it shouldn't go away when the first message is posted in the thread, because we need to keep it there. So I
Yes.
think that's really good feedback.
It
Okay,
should lay the ground rules that people can be guided by, because it gets very, you know, they need to be able to refer back.
absolutely.
All of us need to refer back, so that
Absolutely.
it's kind of a roadmap for the rest of the experience.
Excellent
So,
point.
okay, so then we started in the joint discussion, and I tried to use it as a mediation experience and introductory, exchanging some information. And then I moved them into the private discussion areas. And then I was trying to get them back into the joint discussion areas when we were running out of time.
Did you use the pause button?
Yes, I did. I loved it. I paused the joint discussion while we were in the private discussion.
That's
but
great.
what I did when I brought them back into the joint discussion, I chose not to pause the private discussions,
right,
even though I normally would have, because I had not gotten all of the information and confirmation I needed from both parties, or each party. So I didn't want to cut them off. I wanted to give them ample opportunity to do what I was trying to get them to do before I paused the private spaces. I wanted them to have a private space to, you know, get to a certain point with me before we all engaged again.
I'm very sympathetic to that, because I find that oftentimes once the private caucuses are utilized, even if the conversation goes back to the joint discussion, sometimes the parties will come back into the private session, you know, unexpected to the mediator, and say, you know, I'm really not comfortable with what's going on. You know? And so if you hit pause and you push them back to the joint session, you may miss some of those insights. So I absolutely understand that. Initially, we didn't even have pause buttons in the caucuses.
Well, I think it's a wonderful feature. It creates some structure. It creates a little more control, because after all, the mediator is in control of the process.
That's right. That's right.
You know, absent the consent, you know, needing if things change, because the parties want them to change. But you have to be able to have some structure, because it can get very easily out of control otherwise. And in the textual environment, it has its own challenges. I thought it was really neat.
Susan, I'm looking at your messages here, and I wish I could give you an award for the greatest, best participation. It's impressive how much work you put into it. So thank you for that. I'm sure your parties appreciate it.
Well, thank you to my parties my clients I was working with, because it was a great experience, and it enabled me to practice some methods, you know, of my process that I want to apply. Now, what became a little bit challenging is I'm trained in general civil and not family law, and that is intentional. And this happened to be a family law context. And so one of my parties was getting a little bit frustrated with me for not being willing to be more evaluative or more involved in the substantive aspects of it. And I was trying to explain, you know, well, my style is transformative and facilitative, not evaluative, and I'm trained in general civil, not family. So, and then the other party, Han, did not want to get into financials at all without having an attorney present, and the wife, Leah, wanted to only talk about financials. So we were about to get into that erupting when we ran out of time.
Wow. Okay, that's great. And this was all done in 2 or 3 days, right? Because you had the prior one fall apart. So this happened in a fairly compressed timeline. So, well, that's great. That's excellent. And I know we had another participant in your room.
I would love to hear from them.
Yeah, sure. I think we had Leah, right?
If they're here. I mean, I did send them a message before I got on here to let them know that we had our debrief.
I'm Han.
Oh, okay, Carolyn, you were Han. So yeah, what was your takeaway from the process?
I thought she did an excellent job. It went very smooth. She explained when she paused it, which was very helpful to me. And to me, it also felt very real, very interactive, because I could tell it was getting heated.
That's great.
I appreciated that. Okay, let's call it let's stop I think some of my next communication was about the he said, she said. So it was getting uncomfortable, and she took control of them. It was nice to have that feature.
Well, one thing that I will say, I've seen mediators that overuse the pause button, and they don't sort of explain why they're doing it. They just kind of hit pause, and the parties can get really annoyed. So I think it's artful the way Susan comes in and explains everything she's doing very step by step. I also like, again, normally when I'm training mediators, I say, you don't have to be that formal, but each one of these is like composed as kind of a mini letter. And I like that, Susan kind of signed it. And I don't know, I think the tone kind of works well. It seems like it creates a very respectful, I don't know if you ever read, there was a series of books called Griffin and Sabine. And it was the whole book was just letters back and forth. And they were, sort of dear Griffin, and then the written and signed Sabine. And it was just a beautiful way to write a story. So I kind of like that, that it's composed that way.
Thank you for telling me that, everyone, because it's very helpful to me from a training perspective and practice perspective. It's really good to know that what I'm trying to apply works. And I didn't want to be overly formal, of course.
Sure.
But at the same time, I was trying to keep some control and structure and enough formality that there was a respectfulness going back and forth. I was afraid if I became too informal, it could get a little unwieldy.
Right. I also, initially our text box down here, it didn't have the ability to do bullets and numbers. It just had bold, italics, and underline. And I said, you know what? I really want there to be bullets and numbers, because sometimes it's very helpful to call things out. Like, these are the agreements that we have. It just makes things clearer than putting it in a paragraph. So it makes me very pleased to see you use that several times.
That was one of my favorite features. Thank you for having it, because it's really frustrating for me. I love writing. It's really frustrating when I can't delineate out and organize things so that it's
absolutely
not painful to try to get through, for somebody.
As a participant, it was very helpful as well, because it was easier for me to respond to her. She had her numbers,
sure,
and I could respond to them.
Yeah,
easily.
Per your number one, here's my response. And as you say, a number two. Yeah, I think it's just helpful. Well, that's great. Well, I'm glad to know this one went well. It looks good. Actually, I see some language here that I really like. One of the things that I will point out and make available to all of you as a resource, because it is open. We have something called the Collaborative Online Mediator Resource Guide. And what this is an open Google Doc, and it's open to anyone to contribute. And it's got language, it's got scenarios, it's got opening statements, there's a lot of content in here that have been added over the years. But one of the things that I really like is, let me get down to it. Like, these are sample opening statements and ground rules that online mediators can use. So, again, if you're working in an online mediation environment, you can just find one of these that you like, and you can copy and paste it, and so you can reuse this language. Certain people have highlighted phrases that they really like, that they want to reuse. So these are opening statements, but then we also have, kind of reusable language. Like, here are some exercises. It sounds like you're frustrated. Let's focus on the core issues. Time out. Let's take a breath and step back. So whenever I find a turn of phrase or a paragraph that I really like in a simulation, I'll just grab it and come in here and drop it in the collaborative resource guide. And I definitely see in this, there's some, it seems like, Susan, you have some very well-crafted phrases. So maybe I should ask for your permission now that I said I'm going to do it, but I might just steal it secretly and then place it in the online resource guide. But the link, if you're interested, is, and I will paste it in the chat here, copy link. It is, stop share, newhandshake.org/online mediator guide. So you can just keep that, bookmark it, and if you want to come back and take a look at it, you can see if any of those resources are useful. Okay, well, that was great. So how about another room? Anyone else want to volunteer their room for a little bit of a post-mortem autopsy? That's a little dark. How about a review, a friendly review and discussion? Any other rooms where a good conversation broke out?
In my room, I think there was a conversation without me through this whole week. My Leah was not able to join us. And she was having technical computer difficulties, so she wasn't able to let me know either.
Oh, okay.
Her notes, and we were going back and forth. Han was trying to contribute. However, this afternoon, when I was not available,
yeah,
I now see that Leah did join and
reemerged.
It looks like they had some conversation.
Oh, well, let's go take a look. What room? What room is it, Barbara?
21. I did have an opening statement and a good bit of information of conversation about where's Leah.
Okay. And you said it was 21?
Yes.
21. All right, we got a lot of rooms here. 21.
Han was very patient.
That's good. That's good. That's, I don't know. They must not have seen the Star Wars movies, because that's not really what Han is like. But that's okay. It's good that we can reinterpret the characters. All right, great. So, so I see this is your opening statement. Great. Hello, I'm your mediator, Barbara Fenster. I'm very pleased that you have decided to enter into mediation. I assure you I'll be neutral always and helpful when I can. Ooh, I like that. That's another thing I'm going to steal. Please start by telling me in your private note to me. Oh, that's good. That's good. The list of general topics. I look forward to working with each of you. That's great. That's a wonderful opening statement, Barbara. And Han clearly liked it. But it's all Han, as you said, because you didn't get any Leia. And then, okay, this is good. All right, so this is your private conversation with Leia. No, nothing here for Leia. And this is your private conversation with Han, who clearly is very appreciative of your hands-on approach. I don't know, I didn't see any messages from Leia here.
I thought that I did see it as, you know what, I may have misunderstood what I was seeing when
no worries. Let's see, let's go shame your Leia. That's okay. Well, that's too bad. That was a missed opportunity, because it looks like you did an excellent job. So kudos to you for your contributions. I think you laid the foundation as well as it could have been laid, but sorry. I actually think that this is kind of a teachable moment for online mediation, because party engagement can be a challenge. And it is interesting. It sounds like you emailed your Leia, and she explained, oh, I'm having technical issues and I can't log in, you know, which is a shame. But I think that happens in real mediations too. And is it true or is it not true? Well, you can't really do an investigation to see whether or not they're just not logging in because they don't want to engage, or because they genuinely are having technical issues. So it's a difficult thing to try and navigate that. So I think that's a teachable moment as well.
Well, one of the things, if we were talking about local or semi-local people, then you might be able to regroup and say, well, let's connect on the telephone, or
right,
something like that. But one of my parties was in South Africa.
So time zones could have been an issue as well. Yeah. Well, I didn't collect phone numbers. I easily could have at the beginning and shared phone numbers, and then you could have given them a ring. I've heard a lot of people who, I actually had some mediators who said they started a CREK room and they couldn't get engagement with the parties, but then they texted, and then, oh my gosh, it was on. Like they just texted. So you never know which venue is going to succeed in terms of getting party engagement. So I think you did a good job, Barbara. Sorry your layout wasn't there, but it looked like you got a good Han. Any other rooms that we should dive into and take a look at? I think it's interesting to look at how the rooms actually played out. What I'd also like to think about at a meta level is, for people who'd never done a text-based mediation before, I'd love for you to talk to that experience. What was it like to interact with your parties over text? Did you feel you had the same level of engagement? Did you feel it was harder to make the personal connections? You know, I think what I've learned in my mediation trainings is you use the first half of the mediation to build up rapport with your parties, and the second half of your mediation using that rapport to try and get to a resolution. And sometimes those dynamics are quite different in an online process. So Nicholas, I saw you unmuted. Did you have something you wanted to say?
No, I sort of, for me, it wasn't too bad, because in the line of work that I do, especially as we moved into sort of doing online mediation, which is mostly commercial and tax work, tax disputes, is there's a lot of interaction in terms of trying to clarify the issues via email, but with me being the media being email. But what I've been doing also is then at times then sort of bringing them online and having a conversation, because words sometimes can be, the tone can be read differently.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So what I write and what's written, and then just having that conversation, even by telephone or by a visual thing, can suddenly sort of just mellow and soften everything out again. And then you can sort of start again.
Well, and as I say, it's not about online versus offline, and it's not about synchronous versus asynchronous. I think the future of ODR is all of these things. So as you say, there may be a time it's like, you know what, why don't we jump on a call to talk this out? I think it'll be better. But, you know, there can be a reason. I mean, people often would say to me, well, I do all my cases face to face. I don't need a CREK environment. I'm like, no, actually CREK can work really well in conjunction with face-to-face processes, because it may be that you want to upload the documents and have a conversation in between your in-person sessions, and CREK can enable that. So I think, did anyone here have an audio or video conversation between the parties over the course of the week, above and outside the CREK platform? Anybody have that? Well, I didn't tell you to do that, so you thought that the exercise needed to be purely within CREK. But that's another possibility, obviously, is to, if you have a Zoom room or something like that, well, you could get online. You can make a lot of progress in a 30-minute conversation that might otherwise take you 5 days typing it out. But then you can immediately go back to the text environment and build upon the progress you achieved in the face-to-face conversation. Yeah. So any other rooms that we can take a look at, or any other observations that people would like to share? Oh, please, Andrea. Let's do Andrea, and then we'll do Jaya after.
Okay.
Thank you, Colin. I'm new to the online dispute as well. And what I liked about it was that I can go back and see what the person wrote, so I can make sure I can write an answer or a question or a statement in my paragraph. That's what I liked about doing this online.
Well, I will tell you, I've seen that be very powerful. When a party says to me in caucus at the beginning, I say to them, well, what are you really looking to get out of this? And they say, what I want is, and then they spell it out. And then you get deep into the mediation, and then the goalposts move, and now they're looking for something totally different. Yeah. And if you say to them in a face-to-face session, I thought what you wanted was this, and they say, no, that's not what I wanted. I always wanted this other thing. But online, you can go back and you can say, if you look at the beginning of this thread, you said at the beginning you wanted to achieve quote, paste, quote. Like, these are your words. And then they go back and look at it and say, yeah, I guess I did say that. So, sometimes having a record can be a plus like that, because people can, they're kind of required to be consistent with what they said before because it's right there. But other times I've had cases where someone will say something insulting, like in a joint discussion, and you as a mediator, you're trying to move the parties past that. Okay, let's focus on the future. But they keep going back and reading the message again and re-angering themselves because the text is still there back in the queue. So I think it's a bit of a double-edged sword, but your point is well taken. I think that is a benefit of text-based. Yeah. So Jaya, what were you going to say?
I don't want to talk about my room as such, but the experience I had, I found it very impersonal, extremely, I just wasn't engaged. The fact that, when you are sitting before somebody and you make that eye contact, maybe that's me as a person, it didn't have that, couldn't build that connection with the mediator. It felt as if I was just typing something. That connection wasn't established. Also, I find that maybe that's because also our schedules didn't permit us to do this. We didn't really sit down and have a discussion, so we would I would write something and then I wouldn't get a response. So I'd say, okay, I'll check later. So there wasn't this ongoing conversation. You lose the thread of the train of thought, as well as that connection that you've established, it disappears. I just found it to be a very impersonal and extremely difficult environment to get any issue resolved. I wasn't the mediator, but I was.
Well, I will say I felt that way about my room too. I assigned myself a role because we had an odd number of people, and I felt like we never really got off the starters block.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, we just never made any connection. People were posting messages, but there was no engagement. You know, I think I look at what Susan did, and she created these long passages where people felt heard. They felt really engaged, and I can see how that would draw the parties in. If you see a mediator be demonstratively, you know, reflective in what you're saying, maybe that helps to create that sense of engagement. But I think that it is a risk. I'll tell you, Jai, when I first started doing this work in 2000, 2001, I actually asked one of the founders of the program on negotiation to be an advisor to my first company, which was called Online Resolution. I won't say who it is, but it's probably not that hard to figure it out if you've seen what I've done. But this person who is a giant in dispute resolution said, you know, why don't you come to my office? I want to talk to you, because he's an academic. So I went to his office, and he said, look, I have to tell you something. I think what you're doing is bad for dispute resolution. I think that the notion that people can go to a website and go click, 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 and their problem can go away is the exact opposite of what we stand for. What we stand for is people sitting at the table, looking in each other's eyes, having that connection, and working it out. And if you say that they could just go to some website and then go click, 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 you're undoing our work. You're saying there's an easier path, and I don't believe there is an easier path. And I was rattled because I'm like 29, and this person's my hero is telling me this. So I tap danced, and I said, what if I only do transactional disputes, like low dollar value online e-commerce type disputes? And so they've never met in person. They never will meet in person. It's a relatively simple thing. They're just trying to figure out what money needs to move. And, you know, this person said, okay, that's okay. You can do those disputes. But if the parties can get together face to face, he told me, they should get together face to face. And if you're preventing one party from getting together face to face with the other side, I don't support what you're doing. Now, and at the time I had an absolutely zero, I said, I don't do family disputes. I said, I don't think it's a good fit. Again, this was 2000. I don't think it's a good fit. And people would come to me and say, I want to do a family dispute. Nope. Sorry. They said, we've already separated. We live in different cities. We just need to figure out who's going to sell the car and who's going to get what share of the profits. Why can't we use your platform? I said, nope, sorry. I don't do family disputes. It's not a good fit. I'm transactional. And now there's 100 family ODR platforms. There's Hello Divorce and It's Over Easy and Bliss Divorce. And now, I mean, it's the hottest space is family ODR, which is so weird, you know, that it's like a cutting edge thing. But Jaya, what I'm saying is, I felt the same way you did at the beginning. I didn't think it was a good fit for these emotional, like you're not building the connection, and that's what's necessary in resolving these relationship-based disputes. So I think there's a real risk there. So I think I'm reinforcing the point that you made. Did you have a follow-up that you wanted to say?
Yes, no, I just wanted to comment that, you know, you said, did anyone use video or even a telephone? You know what I mean? That even the voice connection makes a big difference, because you can hear the person's inflection in their tone, whether they're engaged, they are upset, whatever, but that doesn't come across. And, you know, like, okay, Leah called me, Han, a flyboy. It's like, what the hell is that? You know, explain to me, what do you mean? I got a little irritated because here I have a case I'm litigating, and I said, okay, let me put that aside and let me go to ODR. It'll free my mind, right? What the hell? Why are you calling me a flyboy?
That again, I think is from the movie. So, but
So no, it's like, you know what, mediator, set some ground rules, okay? Don't start calling names. I can do the same.
Yeah.
So I got a little ticked off, and I said, this is, you know, maybe on the phone, or if you are face to face, you could, and maybe she said it in, you know, not as in a derogatory manner, but that's how I took it. So you know, I come from a culture, maybe even though I've lived here in the US for, you know, my entire life.
18 years, right?
Yes, but I was raised in a culture where, you know, you are with people constantly, and it matters to have that connection. I mean, when I worked, I work alone now, but when I was employed, I would, instead of calling people on the phone next door, the person is sitting in the office next door, I would just walk there and have a face-to-face conversation. I like that about actually having face-to-face mediation, but I can see in today's age where we're relying on technology that maybe the CREK ODR, this platform, may work for, as you said, certain types of, transactional disputes. But if you're looking at, say, trying to settle sexual harassment cases or other discrimination cases that I work with, it's not going to do it.
Well, I'm gonna just for the nature of the conversation, I'm gonna take the opposite position because I was reinforcing your point before. I think that it's a matter of meeting the parties where they are. And I have to say, I mean, you look at Susan's case and she did a great job. There was engagement, the parties felt connected, and they made good progress. And I mean, obviously this is just a simulated case, but I have plenty of examples. I mean, some people have even argued. So we've done ODR cases in courts and we have essentially the same success rate, about 80% resolutions, that we get through face-to-face mediation. Now, one of the things that we found is that the parties oftentimes don't want to get together face-to-face with the other side because they're angry at the other side and they welcome the opportunity to participate through a different venue. Now, if you don't get the engagement, well, then you don't feel any of the magic of mediation because you're not going to get towards resolution. It's just going to fail. And then you got to move on to the next thing. But I have to say, I find it very hard to tell in advance which disputes are going to be successful in an asynchronous text-based environment and which ones aren't, because sometimes the parties that, the magic is there and they feel the connection and you make a lot of progress. Other times, as you said in your case, and this happened in my simulation too, you just don't get it. The people don't connect, they don't commit to it, and then they, it's like two ships passing in the night. So I think I actually think the younger generation is fluent and comfortable with these technologies in a way that we in the older generation will never be. And I think that they prefer, I mean, this is the interesting thing I see with my kids, my two sons, they communicate constantly through text with their significant others. They communicate emotional things. For them, it's as natural, almost as natural as speaking face to face. And so I just think I urge you to maintain a spirit of openness. What I'd love to do is to give you a case that really works online. And then you can say, okay, well, maybe I can see the potential here. I'm sorry this one didn't achieve that. But, and maybe it's not for you either. Maybe you just say, you know what, I'm just not I'm not a text-based practitioner. I want to do video, I want to do phone, or I want to do face-to-face. And that's the kind of work I want to do. Yeah, I mean, that's totally fine. I think that's
I mean, you can do this, as you said, use this platform to exchange documents or, to have them review it. It's right there. That I can see that, but I cannot. I mean, I don't know. I'm trying to have an open mind, and but I don't think. First of all, I hate to type.
Well, that's a bit. Yeah, there's an obstacle right there.
Susan's, messages. It's like, oh my God, I never learned how to type. I do 3-finger typing. So for me, it's an effort to concentrate. I'll be concentrating on typing instead of actually listening and getting engaged. So maybe, again, that's my personal inhibitions or lack of ability, you may call it. So I just think to myself, if I have to be a mediator, I'll be more interested in making sure I'm typing correctly and that the grammar is correct and everything, rather than verbally communicating with somebody.
I get it. I get it.
So I maybe that can be used, but I would rather do face-to-face.
There you go. I think that's wisdom. Chris, did you have a point you wanted to make?
Well, I do wonder, it's actually, this is sort of ironic because Susan and I was in the room that Susan ditched, although Susan thinks we ditched her, that I ditched her. However, so we'll open up a new CREK room and debate that one. However,
we could do it here in a fishbowl. Let's just, no, it's okay. It's all right. I'm just joking.
Well, no, we will. Susan, are you unmuted? Because this is going to be good. However, you make a comment about text being where things are shifting, and I do notice this. And our company works in Slack. We deal with a lot of short bursts when you're looking at when we deal in video. I mean, what we found when we've been working with online dispute resolution, the short bursts that are supported by short discussions, are supported by backup writing, is a different culture of communication. And so, because Susan made a comment that I'd open up with what I thought was the best opening ever for an irritated Han. However, Susan then had her opening statement after, and it is very long. And so within text, there's, I'm sort of socialized now to scan the top of it, figure out what's important, and then my brain just deletes the other parts of it, right? Mm-hmm. And so she had some instructions in the middle. And I almost wonder if, when you're looking at this type of a tool, if you are playing towards the idea that this will be a quick response, it'll be a live back and forth chat wise, is there a different way it should be triggered? Or should you trigger different alerts? Like when I do a MailChimp will always trigger, if I go over 9 words on my subject line, it'll say, this is more than 9 words. Do you want an emoji instead? Or something like that, right? I wonder if if what we're saying is we want to be successful with a short burst text back and forth communication channel that is better in short bursts, should we be alerting people if the content is too long relative to the medium that we're dealing with?
Well, this is interesting too. Please.
Well, I'm sorry, Colin.
No, Susan.
I needed to say this was asynchronous. Now, if it had been synchronous, you're correct. And that is why in my instructions I put, let's try to put an asterisk at the end of our message so that it alerts the other parties or the other participants that we are finished speaking so the next person can speak. So I tried to create some structure and control there, because otherwise it can get really unwieldy. And this was asynchronous, not synchronous. So it's a different type of communication. To your point, I would agree with you that if it is synchronous, you do want to be more brief. You do want to do little more smaller sound bites and have more of an exchange back and forth. Otherwise, it would be too much to absorb at once. But it was presumed that there would be this big lapse in time. It could be 24 hours.
That's right. Well, that was why we did it over a week too. Oftentimes when I teach it in class, it's, as Chris said, it's synchronous. Everybody's logged in. So then it's more like a chat. You type a line and you hit enter and the other side responds. I mean, the model for mediation I was first trained in by the Quakers, you start off with uninterrupted storytelling, right? Where one side gets to say everything they want to say without interruption until they finish, and then the other side has the same opportunity. The thing about an asynchronous text-based mediation is every communication is uninterrupted, because you get to read the message and then you get to compose your thoughts completely, and then you hit submit and it all comes on at once. And I think in a chat environment, that's not the way it works, right? You type one sentence and then you type another sentence, and the other side is typing sentences in the middle as well. And if you type a long message like you wrote, Susan, in a chat environment, well, the other side's going to be posting messages as you're typing that.
Well, exactly. But remember, when we're doing synchronous, we're scheduling it at a specific time where all participants are on at the same time.
That's
it's
right.
Like having a live meeting versus asynchronous, where a certain amount of time can pass, and you do want to set parameters, which I could have done and said, please respond within 24 hours or whatever. But they're different, yes, and these are really good points.
Well, and I think Carolyn, I'm sorry, Chris, I'll go to you in a minute, but Carolyn posted something in the chat that said, I too got ticked off. He had found it interesting that I was more careful and mindful with my words when they were written. And I have found in asynchronous environments, you very rarely get a message like you would in a chat where someone says, screw you. If you write that in an asynchronous, you're like, okay, I'm not going to say that. You delete it, and then you might reframe it because it doesn't fit in with the tone of the overall conversation. Again, the tone that you set, Susan, with some of the messages you posted. Chris, what were you going to say?
I was going to say that Susan did tell me to wait until I got a response. So I was following instructions. However, I do wonder, though, what was that?
You're so defensive about the fact that she left you.
I am hurt. I'm very hurt. If this isn't coming through, then the video is not working. However,
I'm getting that nonverbal from you.
But I do wonder, though, as far as the asynchronous, the point with respect to the time between a message and its length, I wonder if that's still valid. And I say this just because I've probably got 200 random conversations going on text. and whether it may be a 3-word burst that went from one person, and then like 5 days later you get the other side of that burst. I do wonder if the original thinking with respect to length and time delay is as valid or is as important. So, because my point was, I heard Susan's comment with respect to we may have time in between. I don't know if all of a sudden the delay between messages indicates that the length of the message is going to be directly related to it anymore.
I will say, based on my online mediation asynchronous experience too, Chris, I agree with you. Sometimes I write a long message and I post it, and then it's 24 hours and I get a long response. Other times, we happen to be logged in, or they log in right after me, and I get a response in 5 minutes, and it's a short message, and then I respond with a short message. So sometimes I feel like it can move from long form discussion to kind of more of a chat type exchange when both parties are really engaged, and then back to long form again. So I don't think you make assumptions that it's always going to be long delay message, long delay message. Yeah.
Another thing is, like in real life, you would presumably have a schedule and you'd have certain deadlines. And so I was treating it also a bit like an email. So it was lengthy like an email could be, so that it would be comprehensive in terms of conveying information that could be acted upon, because I needed to keep moving the parties forward, because I knew we were having our debrief on Friday. So I had a deadline to try to help them settle.
So I like that, Susan. I like that. I mean, you own the process, right? That's what a mediator does. You need to kind of set expectations and assign homework. And I like your creative idea about, well, let's put an asterisk at the end of the post so that people know that we're done. I haven't seen that before, and it does seem a little bit, I don't want it to sound pejorative, but a little controlling, like the parties, sometimes the inmates run the asylum. I've had online mediations where we post 2 or 3 messages back and forth, and then I go to bed and I wake up the next day and there are 50 messages, because they both got into it overnight and I didn't even know this was going on. And then I have to kind of be like, whoa, okay, wow, let me go see what happened here. So, you can't really master plan everything, even though, but I mean, if your parties are amenable to it, then sure, why not try?
Something that I tried to propose and nobody did it, and I didn't hold them to it because obviously they weren't responding to it. But I have to tell you, because most of you who know Larry Bridge-Smith,
yep, Larry.
He was the one. Larry and I trained together in a program, a 12-week program, and he was the attorney and I was the client in a simulation. And we were doing a text mediation, and he was the one who suggested it in our simulation. And so I tried to adopt it after that because I thought it was really clever and is an opportunity. It didn't apply in this case because nobody did it except me. But
wait, this is actually, Colin, there's an interesting point here that Susan told me that she'd sent me another message, and I don't see it in the CREK system, but the asterisk thing reminded me, because I thought that was CREK telling me to use asterisks. I did not realize that was Susan. And I have a generic email from no reply CREK ODR that actually has what appears to be, must be Susan's message that isn't in the CREK system anywhere, but is in my email and has content that I guess I wouldn't have thought.
Oh, okay. So there is the ability for a mediator to send an email to the parties from the CREK platform. There is, and the parties don't have that ability to email from within the platform. But the mediator.
I'm sorry. That was a reminder. Chris, I sent you the message. I believe it was as a reminder rather. Well, no, I sent you a reminder also, actually. I sent
Susan, this is an instruction.
I think we might, he's not seeing what I'm seeing. In my side, when I go back.
What room were you in? What room was the room that fell apart?
Room 9 fell apart.
Room 9 fell apart.
Yeah.
Okay.
It did not fall apart. It opened great.
It did.
Chris, it's okay. I'm happy to pay for your therapy to get past what happened in room 9. It almost feels like, what is it in The Shining?
It's like a Psycho.
Do I really want to go into this room? Okay, well, let's go.
You guys are already, receiving the cost of my therapy now.
Zoom therapy. Okay. Oh, wow. Okay. Were you Han, Chris?
Yeah. Oh, of course.
The Kessel run. Okay. And Boba looks like Lando. Okay. This is, wow. There's too many inside. I don't know if Susan picked up on any of this, but there's
Neither were my kids.
lots of movie references. So Susan, again, excellent introductory, wow, message. And there's the asterisk, and that's it. We try to remember to use an asterisk to indicate when we have finished speaking, so the next person is prompted to speak. I like that, but no post after that.
Well, to be fair, she told me to wait. So I put that on. She told me to wait. However, I think where our confusion is,
Sure.
I have an email on the 2nd November at 1:30 p.m. Central, which would be 2:30 for her, that it gives me an instruction. Hello, Han. Just a reminder, please provide a brief summary of dispute, some context, yada, yada. But I don't, yeah, it's not the same as this.
No.
It's also not in my private discussions between her and me.
That's true. So
And
that
so
was,
I
I think it
don't
was
know-
sent via the email tool, because there's no private, it looks like there's no private conversation between you and Susan in the caucus. And that
Oh, I
message,
intended it as a reminder. I think I clicked on the reminder tool in the
Yeah.
platform. And
there is a
and
reminder tool.
I
Yep.
didn't realize it sent it as an email. I guess, yeah, it did look like an email, but it was meant as a reminder for him to respond to what I was asking of him in my initial, my message there. And we never heard from the other party, and he never replied after that. So that's why I got stuck.
Got it. Yeah, I was going to show you the email reminder tool, but I don't know if I have a case where I'm a mediator. And we
The
are getting
problem
to
is-
the end of our time
The
here.
problem is I thought that was a CREK message. And so I just thought it was a generic CREK message. I didn't think it was from her. There's no indications from her. And I didn't read it close enough. I just saw, oh, use an asterisk. That's a cool help thing. Fine. So I didn't actually pay attention to it. And that details of the case, they're coming out in an email. So I just wonder from a design perspective if that is intended use or whether there is something about that that would be.
Well, this is good feedback because, again, we're recording it and I'll share it with the team. Let me log in as a mediator. And I think I said it was, I have too many accounts on this, zoho.com. And we're going to wrap it soon. Thank you, everyone, for your patience. Ping pong. Okay, that's good. I probably shouldn't say my password out loud as I type it. Anyway, the net, this is good feedback. We need to get clarity on the use of that reminder tool because the point of the CREK platform is to never send any private information via email. And we never, because email is not secure. So we do have an email reminder tool, but maybe one of the things that we can do is sort of lock it down so it only sends one message that says, hi, would you like to join me? I've asked you some questions in the room. So I think it's very good feedback, Chris, and I'll take that back with the development team and we'll look at it a little bit because I think it was intended functionality the way Susan used it, but it sounds like it confused you. So
may I ask one question?
Please.
I was under the impression, I mean, if I was busy doing other stuff and I got a message saying from CREK ODR that you have a new message so that go look at it. But I didn't get that message for like the first 2 days. I didn't get any messages.
Really? That's
And
interesting.
all of a sudden, I got the messages from the first day and the second day they appeared from no. Yes, so I found that.
Right.
So then
We need to look at that because that sounds like a
Right.
bug. Yeah.
So I wrote to the mediator saying, hey, I didn't receive any, I thought that we would be notified, but I would be notified when there's a new discussion, but I wasn't, so I haven't been going online. But I did today and I see that there's some responses that you need from me. So I wasn't sure, is this something that the platform is supposed to do? To send a reminder email saying, hey, go check there's a message, a new message for you.
Yeah, that message should appear as soon as it's sent from the other party. It should be visible in your room. There's no delay that's coded in to the platform. So that's something that I'm going to ask the developers to go take a look at. I don't know why your messages were delayed in your room. It should have appeared immediately, and you should get a notification immediately too to tell you to go look at those messages on the platform. So, well, look, it's 5 p.m. and I know it's getting late. Andrea, thank you for being engaged from 7 to 8 on the East Coast. That's very kind of you. And many of you are in different regions. Merez, I don't even know what time it is for you. It's got to be super late. So thank you for dialing in. I will say, what, it's 2 a.m. did you say?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Wow. Okay. Well, Susan
But it
gets
was very interesting to learn to hear the feedback. So thank you all.
Well, thank you. Thank you for making the time.
Hello, Mirez.
Yes.
Hi.
I will say thank you so much again. I appreciate all your engagement, and we've all got very busy lives. If you got a dud room, my apologies. I will say we do lots of these simulations over the course of the year. We just make them available to the iCoder members. So if you want to do more simulations like this, and there's usually a better hit rate. This is the one we do every year for Cyber Week that's just wide open. Anybody can sign up for it because anybody can access Cyber Week, and that might have been why we had a fair number of people that didn't engage. But if you want it, if you're interested in participating again, let me know, or you can sign up for iCoder and you'll get notifications moving forward. But thank you very much for participating this week. We had a wonderful Cyber Week. This is the end. This is the last session. So make sure, set your calendar. 2021 Cyber Week will be next November. So if you want to present or participate, please let me know. Barbara, did you have something you wanted to say?
Are we going to receive or have access to a copy of this recording?
Sure. I'll send it out to everybody.
Okay.
Yep. Any other final comments, questions?
Nope, as usual, it was valuable. I appreciate it.
Okay. Thank you so much, everyone. Take care. Be well. Have a good weekend. And we will talk again soon. Okay.
Great. Thanks, Colin.
Bye-bye.
Great. Bye-bye.
Bye.